I'm dealing with a really difficult situation involving my mom and sister. They've been taking advantage of me for a long time, and it's only gotten worse. Recently, my mom spent a significant amount of my money on my sister's wedding without my consent. When I found out, I froze the account to stop her, but now I'm struggling with what to do next. I want to cut them off financially, but I'm worried about the consequences for them if I do. I'm tired of always giving in to their demands, but I also don't want to make life harder for them than it already is. To give you some context, I'm 38 years old, married with 2 kids, and have been living in Ohio for the past 6 years since I got married. I'm originally from Houston. My childhood was tough. My parents got divorced when I was 5, and my dad left when I was 10. The divorce happened because my dad believed my sister wasn't his biological child. As a result, my dad let my mom keep our house and moved out. He paid for my schooling but didn't support my sister financially, which fueled rumors that his suspicions might have been true. My mom never asked him for money for my sister, which made people even more suspicious. After my parents split, my dad wasn't around much, but he would occasionally come to my school to pay fees and bring gifts. When I started high school, I reached out to him, and since then, we've become really close. He even attended my wedding, despite my mom's disapproval. Over time, I grew much closer to my dad than to my mom. He visited me in Ohio twice after I moved here, but he got very sick and passed away last year. My mom resented the close relationship I had with my dad, and it caused a rift between us. Things became even more strained when my dad named me as the sole heir in his will. After he divorced my mom, he remarried, but he didn't have any children with his new wife. He always said I was his only daughter. My mom and sister never liked the fact that my dad favored me, and they became even more distant when I inherited his $400,000 trust fund. But it wasn't just about the money. My dad's support allowed me to get a better education than my sister, which in turn led to better opportunities and a better life overall. Ever since my mom and sister found out about the trust fund, they've been constantly asking me for money. This isn't new. They've been relying on me financially since I started working. As I earned more, their requests increased. I don't owe them anything, but I've been helping them out because they're family and they don't earn much. My mom works as a cashier, and my sister works in a store. Together, they don't make half of what I do. So, I felt a sense of obligation to help them out, even though we're not very close emotionally. A few months ago, my mom called me and mentioned that our house in Houston was falling apart. The walls, ceilings, and floors were in terrible condition, especially after years of neglect since my dad left. She said it was becoming unsafe to live there, particularly during storms. She had tried to get a loan from the bank for repairs, but the interest rates were too high. I knew she wanted me to give her the money, but neither of us said it directly. The conversation was awkward, and I started ignoring her calls after that. Usually, she only calls once a month, but last month, she called 3 or 4 times. When I finally picked up, she was more direct. She asked me for $100,000, promising to pay it back bit by bit. I was shocked. I didn't have that much to lend. She hinted at the inheritance money, which made me angry, but I didn't want to argue, so I told her I could only lend her $50,000. She agreed. Later, I realized I had acted too quickly. I could have just ignored her request, but now that I had offered the money, I felt obligated to follow through. My husband suggested that I lend the money in smaller amounts and check on the progress of the house repairs before sending more. I told my mom I would send the $50,000 in installments. I had an old account in Houston that I hadn't used in years, so I reactivated it and transferred $10,000 there, giving my mom access to the account. She questioned why I didn't send the money directly to her account, so I made up an excuse. It was actually my husband's idea. I'm not very hopeful that she'll pay it back, but I'm trying to be optimistic. Now, it's been 2 months since I started this arrangement, and I'm starting to realize that my mom and sister might be trying to manipulate me for easy money. I'm not sure how to proceed, but I know I need to protect myself and my family. I lent my mom $20,000 for house renovations, but I've decided not to give any more. I always suspected they were nice to me just for my money, but I never imagined they would lie so much to get it. If they had been honest, it wouldn't have hurt this much. Recently, I found out my sister is getting married, not from my family, but from a school friend whose husband is a wedding planner. My sister has been planning her grand wedding through his agency. I don't think my sister knew that I was friends with them. A wedding worth $50,000 is definitely grand, and it hurts to find out about it from someone else. I wasn't even told about it, let alone invited. I had assumed it would be a small, intimate gathering, but my friend said the guest list had around 100 people. Not being among those 100 guests was heartbreaking. Beyond the emotional pain, I'm concerned about the money. How did my sister afford such an extravagant wedding? It was held at one of the best venues in town, with unlimited food, drinks, top-notch decorations, and flowers. I checked the bank account where I had been sending money to my mom for the renovations, but it was empty. When I called my mom to ask if the renovations had started, she claimed she hired a company, but the work hadn't begun yet. I couldn't stand her lies. Until then, I wasn't sure if they were using my money for the wedding, but the idea of them spending lavishly on the wedding while still taking money from me for the house disgusted me. I briefly considered flying to Houston to check things out myself, but I realized it wouldn't be worth it. Instead, I called my aunt, who lives near my mom's house. She knew about my sister's wedding but wasn't invited either. My mom doesn't get along with my dad's side of the family, so it made sense. My aunt also mentioned that my sister's wedding had become the talk of the neighborhood. Just a few years ago, their house was falling apart, and now they had a brand new house and a lavish wedding. Hearing this made me feel dizzy and confused. My mom told me the house still needed repairs, but my aunt said it looked new with fresh paint. Then I remembered that about 6 months ago, my mom asked me for $20,000 for knee surgery. I called her to ask where she had the surgery done, pretending a friend needed the details for her dad's surgery. My mom struggled to remember and couldn't provide any information about the hospital or clinic. She seemed caught off guard and hung up, claiming a network issue. When I called again, her phone was off, and she didn't answer for days. I sent a text, but she didn't read it. That's when I realized she was lying. The money I gave her for the surgery was probably used for the house renovations, and the money she's taking now is likely for my sister's wedding. I also found out that my sister got engaged on our front lawn, with decorations and wine. I felt like I'd been living in the dark, unaware that they were living so lavishly while pretending to be poor to get money from me. So, I decided to cut them off. I stopped sending money to that account, and when my mom called or texted, I ignored her. Even my sister, who never called before, tried reaching out, but I ignored her too. I'm done with their lies and manipulation. Just because I make more money than them and my dad left me an inheritance while giving them nothing doesn't give them the right to take advantage of me with their lies. I've decided to spoil my mom's, princess's, big day. Update 2. I was right about my mom. When I ignored all their attempts to reach me, my mom called my husband. Let me tell you, my husband can be a bit of a party pooper. I warned him not to talk to them, but when my mom called, he did. She started crying, saying I was avoiding them and that they needed money to finish the renovations. She claimed I had broken my promise. My husband spilled the beans. Yes, he did that. I wanted to smack him on the head. He told her that I knew the truth, that she had been using me for money, and that the money was really for my sister's wedding, which is why I cut them off. I was really angry because I wanted them to suffer for their deception, but my husband ruined everything. He also told my mom that we knew she lied about the knee surgery and used that money for the house. After that call, my phone was flooded with messages and calls from my mom, all filled with apologies. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that she had borrowed money from someone to repair the house and was repaying them with the money I had sent. But deep down, I knew it was just another lie. After enduring her constant attempts to reach out, I finally told her I'd only talk to her if she promised to tell me the whole truth. She agreed, and when we finally spoke, she confessed everything. My mom admitted that my sister wanted a lavish wedding, but they didn't have the funds for it. Instead of being upfront with me, they concocted a story about needing money for house repairs to get me to send the money. Since I hadn't been to Houston in years and wasn't in contact with anyone there, they figured I'd never find out that the house was already renovated. When I asked why she didn't just ask me directly for money for the wedding, she said it was my sister's idea. My sister didn't want to ask me for a favor outright. Can you believe that? I confronted my mom, telling her I knew she had used the money I'd sent for her supposed knee surgery to fix the house instead. She went silent. I told her I was aware of everything, so there was no point in hiding it anymore. She tried to justify it by saying the house was falling apart and that my sister's in-laws were coming to visit, so they needed to fix it quickly. In her panic, she called me, fabricating the story about needing urgent knee surgery, and I, concerned, sent the money immediately. Even though I remained composed during the call, I was crying inside. How could my own mother deceive me like this? I understand they have financial problems, but that doesn't give them the right to manipulate me and take advantage of my emotions. After hearing the full truth, I hung up and cried for hours. I can't remember the last time I cried so much, probably not since my dad passed away. I missed him terribly that day. 2 days later, I received a voicemail from my mom, asking me to send more money so they could continue planning the wedding. It disgusted me so much that I wanted to scream at her. If she weren't my mother, I would have. She was so selfish, showing no regret. All she cared about was the money. They didn't even invite me to the wedding, not even out of politeness. When the truth finally came out, I was so frustrated that I blocked both of them. I also warned my husband not to speak to them, and if he disobeyed me again, he'd be sleeping outside in the cold. I'm serious about this. I stayed in touch with my aunt, and she told me the wedding was set for next month. I didn't tell her about the money, but I knew my mom and sister were struggling more and more each day to make the wedding they wanted happen. Good for them. Update 3, my mom and sister kept calling and leaving voicemails until the wedding day, begging for more money, but I stood my ground. On the wedding day, my mom's final voicemail said she was ashamed of me and that she was disowning me. It hurt so much, I cried a lot in front of my husband. People might think I'm mean for ruining my sister's wedding. My mom certainly called me arrogant and selfish, but she never considered her own lies. She tricked me for so long. I helped them because I felt like I had to, because they were my family, but to them, I was just a source of money. On the wedding day, my friend, whose husband was the wedding planner, called me. She said the wedding might be cancelled because my mom and sister couldn't afford to pay for it anymore. I asked my friend how much they had spent on the wedding so far, and she said $20,000. I told her that should be enough for a nice wedding, but she explained that my sister had ordered extravagant decorations, food, and a venue that alone cost $20,000. She asked if I was going to attend, and I said no, I had other plans. My friend knew I wasn't close to my mom and sister, and to be honest, I felt upset, as if I had ruined my sister's wedding. For a brief moment, I thought about giving my friend the rest of the money to complete the wedding as planned, but then I remembered my mom's voicemail disowning me. What's the point in helping them if they're going to turn their backs on me in the end? Maybe my actions weren't the best, but they were a reaction to the hurtful things they did. I turned off my phone and spent the day with my kids to keep my mind off everything. The next day, my friend called again, upset with my sister because the wedding had made her husband look bad in the business. On the wedding day, my mom and sister had begged her husband to arrange something simple for the wedding and promised to pay him an additional $10,000. He managed to get decent food and decoration since the $20,000 advance covered most of the venue cost. But guests, especially the groom's family, criticized the arrangements, and my sister blamed the wedding planner, saying he had ruined everything. My friend's husband wanted to tell the truth, but my mom begged him not to ruin my sister's life. He stayed quiet and took the blame, even though they still hadn't paid the promised $10,000. I felt so embarrassed and didn't know what to say. My friend assured me she wasn't blaming me but just needed to vent her frustration. I felt bad for my family's embarrassment but was also ashamed that they blamed the planner. My husband said they got what they deserved and that I shouldn't worry about them. They brought it on themselves by being dishonest. I'm relieved to be free from their lies and manipulations. My mom disowning me turned out to be a blessing. I don't have to deal with their deceit anymore. And now, on to the next chapter of my life. My husband dropped a bombshell yesterday. He confessed that he's in love with my sister. But he said it when he was drunk, so I'm not sure if it's real. We all had dinner together. Last night, my sister and her husband came over, and we all drank a lot together. After they left, my husband and I had sex, but since we were both tired, we decided to keep drinking wine, listening to music, and just enjoying the night. My husband seemed really happy, as he usually does when he's had a bit too much to drink. As we continued talking, the conversation drifted to my sister and her husband. Out of nowhere, my husband said, "I'm so in love with sister's name." I was completely shocked and asked him what he just said. He repeated, "I'm crazy about sister's name. I wish I could kiss her, she's amazing." He had this dreamy look on his face and kept smiling. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Even though I was also drunk, the impact of his words hit me hard. I just sat there in silence while he seemed lost in his thoughts, smiling to himself. I eventually went to bed, feeling confused and upset. This morning, when I woke up sober, all those memories from last night came rushing back. What my husband said is haunting me, and I feel shattered inside. He hasn't mentioned anything and seems fine, just dealing with a hangover. I don't know what to do now. He's always had a good relationship with my sister, so part of me wonders if I should just ignore what he said, thinking maybe it was just the alcohol talking. Should I wait for him to bring it up, or should I confront him about it? I'm not even sure if he remembers saying it. As for the sex we had last night, it felt different. I enjoyed it and thought it was amazing, but he seemed different, more passionate and loving. He kept telling me how much he loves me and how amazing I am. My sister recently lost weight and looked stunning in a form-fitting dress yesterday, and we all complimented her. She was really happy about it, and I wonder if that has anything to do with what my husband said. I definitely plan to talk to him about it once he's not hungover and can think clearly. I'm torn about whether to believe the saying, "Drunk minds speak sober thoughts," because while alcohol can cloud judgment, I'm not sure I can fully believe that alcohol alone could make someone confess love for their sister-in-law. Even if he denies it, I'm not sure if I can get past this. If I were you, I wouldn't feel comfortable with my husband and sister being together again, and that's not good for a marriage. I think he was probably just expressing an attraction to your sister in the moment. Honestly, when people's inhibitions are lowered, they might mix up feelings of lust and love. So regardless, you need to have a serious talk with your husband. No one else can answer for him, and even after talking, it might be really hard for you to move forward. From my own experience, I know that even if it's just lust, you might carry this experience with you like a shadow. If you both want to try to make things work, I suggest going to couples counseling and getting therapy individually to help you both move forward in a healthy way. I wish you all the best and hope for a brighter future for you. I'm really sorry you're going through this. Something similar happened to me once. My ex said, "I love you," but used my twin sister's name instead. When I corrected him, he acted like it was just a mistake, but it wasn't. He was actually in love with my sister, and he was only dating me to get close to her. You need to have a serious talk with your husband about this. It makes no sense for him to stay with you if he's interested in your sister. No sister would ever accept her sister's ex, or at least that's what I thought until my sister dated him after we broke up. Our upbringing was tough, and our relationship wasn't great because our parents often compared us and pitted us against each other. I agree that it's usually the worst way to handle things, and it would be much better to be friends with your siblings instead of getting involved with them romantically. But I guess my ex wasn't thinking clearly. It's painful to read about what you're going through. You definitely need to talk to him about it today since he's acting like nothing happened. Do you think he doesn't remember saying it? I agree that drunk words often reveal sober thoughts. Have you ever noticed any behavior toward her that made you stop and think? Ask him directly while you're facing each other. His reaction will tell you a lot. He's always like my sister. He gets along with my whole family and is friends with my brothers, but my sister is the one he likes the most. We're very close to her and her husband, and we usually do things together as a group. My sister has always been my best friend, so it seemed normal for him to get along with her. But if he had only said, "I love her," it could have been just a drunken slip-up. Instead, he made sure to express his feelings clearly. His words weren't just drunken nonsense, they were sincere and showed deep feelings, especially since his inhibitions were lowered. People often say silly things when they're drunk, but confessing love isn't usually one of them unless it's something they truly feel deep down. I suggest bringing up the conversation directly to gauge his reaction. That should give you more clarity on the situation. Update *. It's been 3 days since my last update, and I've been feeling conflicted. On Sunday, I confronted my husband about what happened that night. He claimed that he couldn't remember much, especially after my sister and her husband left and we continued drinking. When I told him what he said, he didn't seem shocked or surprised, just that he didn't recall saying anything. I asked if he felt that way before we started drinking. He admitted that he's always loved my sister in a general sense because she's kind and warm. He also mentioned that she looked really beautiful that night, and perhaps in his drunken state, he found her attractive. He explained that it's normal for people to be curious about the opposite sex. He also commented that he's always thought my family is good-looking, and my sister's recent weight loss had given her confidence, making her look happy, which made him happy for her. When I asked him to choose between us, he was visibly shocked. He emphasized that I'm his wife, the mother of his children, and that he loves me deeply. However, when I posed a hypothetical scenario, asking him to imagine if we had just met and neither of us was married, he grew frustrated. He said that playing such hypothetical games was ridiculous and could lead to unnecessary arguments. After dinner, he reassured me of his love and happiness, urging me not to overthink what he said when he was too drunk to even know what was going on. Despite his reassurances, I still feel uncertain about everything. I appreciate the advice I've received, and I'm seriously considering seeing a therapist on my own. It deeply troubles me to think that his desire to remain connected with my sister, even in a small way, could have influenced his decision to stay with me. The mere thought of him being intimate with her or using me as a substitute for his feelings for her would haunt me endlessly, making it nearly impossible to feel emotionally connected during intimate moments with him. I'd constantly be comparing myself, feeling inadequate, and questioning whether his feelings for me are genuine. Given my ADHD, it's even harder for me to believe that his affection for me isn't just an act. My sister and I are very close, and we live near each other. I can't help but wonder if he settled for being close to her by choosing to be with me. I find myself obsessing over every interaction and every mention of her, questioning whether he's as happy with me as he seems to be with her. I don't know if what he's saying is true or if I'm just overanalyzing everything now. But I realize there's no way to completely move past this, it will always linger in my mind. I need to trust my instincts and stand up for myself. He admitted his feelings for my sister, feelings he's had for years, but insists that he loves me and cherishes the life we've built together. We're going to start counseling, and from now on, when I spend time with my sister, he won't be joining us. He's confessed his feelings for her, but he assures me that he's never acted on them in the past and has no intention of doing so in the future.